Barcelona start off in a 4-2-3-1. We got Inaki Penny in goal. Balde, Inigo Martinez, Pau Cubarsí, Jules Koundé. We got the double pivot of Frankie de Jong and Casado. We got the front three of Rafinha, the number 10 Pedri, and Fermin Lopez. He's the winger. Robert Lewandowski is the striker. And it wasn't that Fermin Lopez was tucking in as a number 10 or a false number 10 or something like that. He was actually playing as a winger, an inside forward. We weren't going to expect too many dribbles from him. He's more of a runner, so sort of like a second striker at times. And this is how Barcelona started. If we look at Sociedad, what they did was they started off in 4-1-4-1. So that's their formation, and that's a pretty good formation. They knew that the sort of team they were facing, a very high scoring team, and that was the best formation for them to, high press as well as play a mid block or a low block. Their players, they're a really good team. They're mostly a team, if you look at their profiles and everything, they've got that dribbler in Kubo, and they've got that runner in Becker. And so what they have is what most teams usually don't have, that they can also control the game for bits if they want. And because of that dribbler threat and that runner threat, they pose a threat to a team like Barcelona that few teams in La Liga would pose. And that is why, this was a very good opponent, and they were playing at home. And so what we needed from Barcelona was a fast game, but that wasn't the case. So now if we look at what really happened here, and because of Kubo's dribbling, one of the things was that it was going to be very hard for Barcelona to trigger that offside trap. And if they can't trigger that offside trap, or if it's difficult to trigger that, then Real Sociedad threat becomes real as compared to other teams. And so what we saw here is that the only problem with Real Sociedad is that most of their attackers, they can't put in too many goals. That's their drawback to their game. And if they had attackers who could actually put in more goals, they would actually be a top 4 team easily. And so that's why, they're actually a better team than what their La Liga standing shows so far. All right, so now what was Barcelona's issue in this game? Well, in the first part, the thing is that Lewandowski, he did end up scoring a goal. Okay, so how that happened is that Frankie de Jong, he got the ball, and Frankie de Jong is a runner, so he made that dribble, and then he made that really hard pass to Lewandowski. And the thing is that, Lewandowski was not offside, and he ended up scoring. But because La Liga is using that automated VAR, what the artificial intelligence did was that it replaced Lewandowski's toe, which was behind the defender, and it replaced it with the defender's foot. And it also replaced Lewandowski's arm with the defender, which didn't come into play, but the toe was offside. And that wasn't Lewandowski's toe, that was the defender's toe. And so it was a technical glitch. Not really a glitch, but the technology, it's pretty accurate, but as with all artificial intelligence technologies, they can make mistakes. And it so happened that in this case, the mistake was made and it costed Barca dearly. But Beyond that, so what happened was that Real Sociedad, when Barcelona were building up, Iñaki Peña took that long shot. The ball was intercepted by a Real Sociedad player here. He put a header which bounced off, then another bounce off header here, and at that time, Becker, he got the ball and he just made that run, and as soon as he got the ball, it was just a one touch goal, and that happened. It was just a mistake that just happened in that moment. It wasn't really anybody's fault, or it wasn't a technical lapse or anything like that. But Real Sociedad went up. After that, yes, they also made certain attacks, and there were crosses and the Real Sociedad players missed, and there were some shots that even Iñaki Peña had to save. They had a lot more shots than Barcelona on target, and this was the only match where Barcelona actually did not have a single shot on target, and that has happened after 10 years. And so why did that happen? Well, one of the reasons is that, as Real Sociedad, they started off in a 4-1-4-1. Yes, they did press high. They had that thing going for them. But another thing is that once they went up, they also went defensive, and because of that 4-1-4-1, they could actually load their box in a very compact way. And so, with all these guys inside the box, this space was really congested. And for that, Barcelona had to speed up their game. And if they couldn't speed up their game, I'll tell you why they couldn't in just a bit. That was always going to be a problem. And so what happens is that normally when Barcelona play, they have Lamine Yamal. And so if the game is slow, and when the game is on this side of the field, you got runners in Rafinha, right? So the game is really fast. But sometimes, when Barcelona are going for that possession game and not that direct verticality, Lamine Yamal is the key player. Because he's a dribbler, he calms that game down, he pulls people to him, and then he makes those crosses, and Barcelona do find that space with the late runner midfielders, the number 10, even Pedri coming on from behind, and they end up scoring. And the thing is that they have a very good average, well above 3 or 3.5, and that is Hansi Flick's average with Bayern as well. So the thing is, now there were some people who were saying that, okay, will Barcelona regress to their mean, which was about 2 goals a game under Xavi? The answer is no, they won't. They will stay around their mean of 3 and above, which is Hansi Flick's mean for club football. And that's what Barcelona have been doing. They've been scoring well above that, and so if they do regress towards mean, it will most likely be that. But there's a catch over here. Now, if we look at how that mean of over 3 goals a game has been achieved under Hansi Flick, if we look at it more closely, it has been achieved under a very strict player profile. And that is basically that you have a striker in Lewandowski, you have a runner in Rafinha, and then you have a number 10. And that number 10 has mostly been a real 10. Like initially it was Dani Olmo. Dani Olmo got injured. So in one of the matches, Hansi Flick, in the first Champions League match against Monaco, he played Eric Garcia. And then you see, so Pedri moved into that number 10 spot. But the player profile shifted, because normally Pedri is the guy playing over here, and you have a specialized number 10, and that is where Hansi Flick's strength and squad balance lied, and you had a dribbler in Lamine Yamal. So what happened is that when he moved Terry Garcia and he brought Pedri here, it became a defensive profile, and Barcelona ended up getting the red card, and they ended up losing that match. The next Champions League game, when they faced Young Boys, the match before that they faced Osasuna, And in that match, it happened to be that match where Hansi Flick decided to give Lamine Yamal a rest. And because he gave Lamine Yamal a rest, so there was no dribbler threat. Because, they wanted to win the match against Young Boys, so they were focusing on that. And so they lost that focus. And that is why Osasuna ended up beating Barcelona on those counterattacks. Now the thing is, yesterday again, what happened was that Lamine Yamal was injured. He's going to be out for 2 or 3 weeks. But the international break is approaching, and obviously they don't want Lamine Yamal traveling. So yeah, fine. He's injured. He wasn't in the squad, and the international break was approaching. Frankie de Jong was also limping during the game. Barcelona basically, with Lamine Yamal out, sort of seemed like as if they'd lost focus, and again there were profile shifts. And this is where the whole thing becomes understandable. We can come to, some sort of an idea that where Hansi Flick, his team, starts to struggle and why they couldn't get a single shot on target. So what happened is that this was the first game, or fine, one of the rare games where Frankie de Jong has actually become the starter. And so you have Casado and Frankie de Jong here. Whereas normally you had Pedri. So Pedri is finding those through balls, and the number 10 is creating more threat as a second striker, the Thomas Muller role. And you got a dribbler in Lamine Yamal. So there's a balance going on over here. And so Pedri is also making the late runs. But with De Jong, what happens is that Casado, he's defensive, he's got really good work rate, but most of his role is over here and to provide stability for the team. Whereas Frankie de Jong, more than the long range passes or the line breaking passes, he's more of a runner. And so Pedri has to be bumped up. And Pedri, if you look at it, yeah, he plays good over here, but he plays better over here. So now you have that profile balance again, where Frankie de Jong and Koeman, he used to play over here at times as a libero. So you got that libero role, which is most of the time, in Frankie's case, defensive. Yeah, fine, he goes here. He was the guy responsible for Barcelona's goal. But overall, during the entire match, that role is basically Hansi Flick. He's looking for that fast game. And with Frankie de Jong, he came on as a sub against Real Madrid, and at that time, yeah, if you start, it's a different thing. If you come on as a sub, the situation is entirely different. At that time, Barcelona wanted a more calm and more possession-oriented game because the game was going too fast. They weren't getting much of the ball control. And so he came on as a stabilizer, as the guy who gave them more calmness, more possession. But yesterday, against Real Sociedad, you wanted a faster game so that you could get some shots on target. But this was Frankie de Jong. He was giving a more calm role. He's a great player and all that. But we're looking strictly at what has worked for Hansi Flick so far at Barcelona. So with Frankie de Jong, the entire balance of that team changes. And so, if there was, let's say, Pablo Torre over here and Pedri was starting, or Fermin Lopez was in the center, and yeah, another thing is, okay, fine. If Lamine Yamal is not playing, who is that substitute winger? You need a dribbler because you got a runner over here. And so what they did was he subbed on Ansu Fati and moved Rafinha over here to this side. But what happens is that, Ansu Fati, he's hardly had any playing time, and after the injury, he hasn't really been what he could do over here with all that dribbling and 1v1s and, play inside. The subs were, spot on. Because of lack of playing time, they could not create that threat. Their game still wasn't fast enough, although, yes, the subs were spot on. So Barcelona will now also have to look at squad depth and how to build that. And so, yeah, fine, we've heard that Mohamed Salah's name has been coming up, but, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to probably maybe renew with Liverpool for a short term, or maybe go to Saudi Arabia or something like that. But the thing is, and when he does come, fine, he has that dribbling profile. But yes, Barcelona is a name that can attract him. But the thing is, Lamine is a young guy. He's the guy who's going to be a starter. And so will you be able to, keep a calm dressing room with Salah on the bench? I don't know. Or maybe he starts playing as a number 10 or something like that. But that will affect the development of the team. And so maybe then that's why they want to sign Leao and then bring Rafinha back over here, so that they can give Yamal some rest, and because Rafinha can also play as a number 10. And so that is why maybe they're looking at Rafael Leao, because he's being linked to Barcelona. So the thing is, what happened with Real Madrid is that they lost Toni Kroos, the playmaker, the guy who was threading those long passes. And because their team isn't balanced, Mbappe's not a striker, he's a winger, and so is Vinicius Jr. And so when nothing was going, it's Winnie who stepped up his game. And Mbappe, playing out of position, can't do much. Bellingham regressed towards his mean. He was outperforming last season, but with Mbappe in front of him, it's just not working out. Although he's been really close at getting those goals, but they just haven't been going in. And that was the thing with Barcelona yesterday as well. So fine. Again, Winnie, he's a dribbler. He stepped up his game. He's got 2 hat tricks. But now the thing is, if you look at Barcelona, they need more depth. Fine, they don't need any more depth in the midfield. That's okay. But Hansi Flick is going to have to make that decision. That, okay, fine, you need those profiles which work for you. So there has to be some tweaking now. Some fine-tuning. That, okay, if you face a good team like Real Sociedad, what is the role of Frankie de Jong? You got to tell him to find those passes, those line breakers, and speed up that game if Frankie de Jong is going to be the starter. Because at the start of the game, you got to speed it up. And then eventually, yes, as the game slows down, that is the time when you want more possession, more calmness, more control. So fine, yeah, Barcelona had 66% of the possession, but they had 0 shots on target and had an XG of just 0.54, whereas Real Sociedad had 3 times that.